Exactly.
And I would also say that Hikaru, although at times I felt like he
Doesn't
has
care.
lost his motivation and will to win.
So recently, Dubov made a very interesting comment on one of the podcasts that he's been on recently, and it was targeted at you. Let's see what he had to say and your reaction to it.
So the goal is basically to become at least of the same level as Magnus in terms of chess strength.
No, not Magnus, of course, but like Fabi, let's say. Fabi, actually, in that sense, Fabi is a very, very inspiring example because for me, like, I really hope Fabi, if you will watch this, like, that's what I think, and it's actually, like, I mean it as a compliment. I seriously think that Fabi is probably, like, in terms of the natural gift, Fabi is, like, one of, like, I don't know, like, he's arguably the least talented player of the whole, like, top, I don't know, 20, 30. At least for me. And it's very inspiring because with Magnus, I mean, sometimes you see those, like, moments of genius. And you can say to yourself, okay, like, I don't know how I mean, like, I cannot do this. I can work a lot, still I cannot
No, I mean, of course it's a 25-minute video, so like, I don't want to pause it too much at the start, but here's what I'm going to be honest. And here's what's really important to note. What's really important to note when you look at a topic like this is what is the criteria that you're basing everything off of. So, in my opinion, what Dubov is basing this off of is he's basically saying that natural talent, at least is my perception, is about blitz and rapid chess specifically, and that the value of your actual talent is showcased much more in rapid and blitz than in classical chess. So that's what I think Dubov's criteria is. You have to understand what the criteria or the basis is for making such statements. And my perception is Dubov is talking specifically about blitz and rapid chess. And because you have to move quickly, it showcases pure talent versus hard work. That's what I think he's trying to say. But let's see how Fabiano perceives it, because I assume that's what Fabiano is going to say too. At least that's my perception.
This, and and it's not going to change.
Yes, and actually you're right. Actually, what as someone in chat says, you're right. When he's saying about no talent, very, very clearly, it's saying that when you have to play with no preparation, you show up and you have to find good moves with very little time. And so that's what I think Dubov is effectively basing it off of.
There are just things that he feels, and you cannot do much about it. But with Fabi, like, I don't think there is like a single thing, like chess thing, that Fabi can do, and like many other players cannot. I don't think it exists. It's very much about the winner's mentality. It's about his routine, openings, a lot of work, tremendous amounts of work.
So basically what he says, it's that you're putting in absolutely tremendous amounts of work. You're the least talented, naturally gifted player in the top 20, which I think is complete bogus. But yeah.
See, and this is the problem with the whole thing. Like I said, I mean, the big problem with the whole thing ultimately is that when you look at this, it's like a compliment, but it's also an insult at the same time. That's the problem. And again, without like a basic criteria, like, because here's an example. I could put it the other way. I could say I think classical chess is the best example of how good you are. Because I could say, well, look at classical. You have to work very hard. You have to do great opening preparation. You have to have great calculation. You have to be able to think for a long time, but also play with very little time on the clock. So like the problem with this whole thing, or this whole argument, I'm sure Fabiano, I assume he's going to say something along these lines, is like the criteria. There's no hard set criteria. So without explaining what your criteria is, like it's hard. You can't be objective. And that's the big problem that I have with this, is because you could say anything. I mean, if you want to talk about rapid and blitz, you could, by that metric, yes, I think Dubov is not wrong. Fabiano's results in rapid and blitz chess are much worse than, say, myself, Magnus, or Ali Reza. But on the other hand, you can say like hard work and having to do a lot of opening preparation is a massive talent in and of itself. So it's like, that's really the problem, is like it's not really an objective take. And I think Dubov probably should have clarified. I think with a lot of things in chess, without a specific clarification or a specific criteria of what you're basing it off of, it doesn't really work very well. That's the problem. He literally won St. Louis Rapid and Blitz last year. Yes, but the thing is, in the World Rapid and Blitz, he's never done very well. He's not been close. Has he ever gotten a medal even? I don't think he's even gotten a medal in Rapid in the World Rapid and Blitz. But that's the problem. That's the problem. Is like unless you're gonna say, look, I base this off of Rapid and Blitz, period. That's it. Then it's just like it's crazy. It's just crazy. So he got a medal in Rapid 2 years ago. That probably is the year that I didn't play, I'm guessing. So that's probably why I was unaware of it. But at any rate, yeah, it's really, I mean, I personally, the way that I look at it is I think hard work is definitely a thing. And I think trying to say that's not a talent, I mean, because also, you know what else I could say? I could also say, look at you know, why is it that Fabiano comes up with better ideas than like Dubov? Why is that? I mean, everybody has the same engines, everybody's using the same stuff. Why does Fabiano come up with better ideas? Like, that is a talent in and of itself. I mean, is it not? Even if he's not doing the work specifically as his team, like the team or him, whatever it might be, like everybody should be able to find the same ideas. Everybody has the same equipment. Everybody's got, like, you've got access to the exact same engines. Everybody's got Stockfish, Leela, Komodo, Torch, everything else. Like, everyone's got access to the same stuff. So, like, again, why isn't everyone else coming up with it? So you could make an argument that's a talent too. On the other hand, I think Dubov's basically saying that, you know, engines have ruined, I mean, my take is Dubov saying engines have ruined the game. There's no creativity. It's just you plug in the moves and that's that. But there are holes even in that argument too. So I really just like, I don't, I mean, I know what Dubov's trying to say, but I don't really agree with it, because I think it really is diminishing how important hard work and opening preparation really are, because you can't get very good without putting in a lot of time, no matter who you are.
I want to see your reaction to that.
Well, okay, so first of all, Dubov says that he doesn't mean it as like a criticism or insult, which I think is true, and he means it as a compliment, which again, I'm certainly not taking this as a personal thing. So I don't see it as either an insult or a compliment. He says it's a compliment. Some people would.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the statement is it's both. It can be a compliment, it can be an insult. You don't really know. So Fabiano is not wrong with what he says here at all. I mean, it's like, it's both. I'm contradicting my own statement. What do you mean? How am I contradicting my own statement? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't know exactly what you're saying.
I'd see this as a bit of an insult. Some would say it really depends on your perspective of what you would call a natural gift and what you would call hard work, and which is more valuable.
Which matters
to
more,
it's
yeah.
going to be a very individual thing. The thing which I never really understood is, like, when we say natural talent, I don't really know what this means.
Yep, also
like
true.
when we talk about someone's level,
yeah, because Fabiano is probably gonna say, it's like, you say natural talent, but like, for example, if Fabiano never, like, if I didn't study chess with computers and study openings, natural talent basically means how good are you without any other resource. So by that metric, Paul Morphy is easily the greatest chess player to have ever played chess. Not even close, because he had no computers. He had very basic books. He had to learn everything on the fly. But as we know in modern day chess, if you don't use any resources, you're not going to be good, no matter how naturally talented you are. You're just not going to be good. You're just not going to be good at all. That's the reality. So that's why I think Fabiano's about to say this.
We understand we go by rating and foreign victories, accomplishments, and so on. And there's like objective criteria, right? You know, Hikaru is this rating, Magnus is this rating, Alireza is that rating, and then we can measure people by their results. When we speak about talent, it's not something that's really quantifiable.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's going to be a very subjective thing, and usually I think we use it as a helpful metric, a subjective metric, but still a helpful one, to determine if, like, a young player is very promising. So you talk to, or you work with, let's say, an 8-year-old player, and of course they're not very strong yet, but you can see, or you can try to gauge how strong they will be in the future, and we call that like natural gift, right?
I think it's just instincts, right? Instincts, understanding of where to place, natural understanding of where to place the pieces. And as
I mean, my personal take, by the way, is all this is nonsense. I think it's a complete package. Like, I mean, trying to say that someone's terrible, or, you know, this, that, or the other thing matters more, matters less. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's all nonsense. It's just a complete package. I don't think you can really quantify it in any way and say so-and-so is better than so-and-so. Like, yes, you can say Magnus, myself, and Alireza were clearly the 3 best blitz players by rating, but I don't think that has anything. I mean, you can't say that's natural talent. It's a combination of hard work, playing many games online, for example, or playing many games over the board and blitz. Like, it's just not really the same thing. So I think it's all kind of silly in
This
my opinion.
generally comes at an early age, and you can kind of understand where that player is going to go based on that. I think this is what he's hinting at.
Okay, but again, it's like natural feel for where to put the pieces. I mean, we speak about this for determining if like a young player will get very, very strong. But of course, top players all have natural feeling of where to put the pieces. And of course, yeah, it may vary, but then there's also other aspects of chess, like calculation ability, tactical awareness, which I think is one of my weaker sides. And I think that's one of Hikaru's strongest sides. And also one of Magnus's strongest sides is like just quick tactical awareness.
Tactical awareness, really?
Yeah, but there's like a million factors in chess. Like
But I mean, but Magnus also just happens to have good awareness. Period. Like I'll give you another example of good awareness. Like a good example of awareness is that Magnus in blitz games, there are moments where he knows to stop and think for like 20 seconds, and that is like an innate ability that he has that no one else has. Like he can sense it, even if it's tactical or positional. He can sense when something's wrong, and he'll be able to stop and think for 20 seconds. Like he did it against me in Title Tuesday, actually. There was a critical moment in this last Title Tuesday round 11 where he played, and he just slowed down and thought for 20 seconds, and he moved the wrong rook, but he still could sense it. He could sense that there was something there in the position, and that is like that, for example, is something that I would say is just like no one else possesses that ability. No one else possesses that ability to just like feel it. Like it's just that innate ability to feel the position. So Magnus definitely has some things more than anybody else, but overall, I mean, Fabiano is completely right here. This is all very
my structured calculation.
It's very subjective.
Is probably one of my stronger sides, and in the past it's been more of a stronger side. Like now it's changed a bit, but in the past I think I was in terms of like ability to accurately and thoroughly calculate a position, I was maybe the best, or equal best. And now I don't think that's really the case anymore, because chess has changed and players have changed and I've also changed. But we're talking about different things in chess, not about talent but about skills, right?
Yes.
When we say talent,
I think Hikaru's trying to be moderate, but this Dubov guy was very unlikable. I mean, basically, I'm sure we're going to hear more about this, but my take is it feels like Dubov's salty. It feels like Dubov is very much a purist towards chess, and he feels like the better you are without computer engines and programs, like the better you actually are. Like, you know, the more natural ability to play a position that's like equal on move 10 versus like getting some massive advantage with some insane preparation, for example. And by the way, I say insane on purpose, not as a slight, because some people will probably take it that way, but it's like it feels very much like he's salty because he's this purist where like he hates that chess has become this game where people can prepare so deeply. But on the other hand, the problem with that take is that he can do it too. He has access to the exact same resources. That's the problem with the whole take, is that like anybody can do it, so why can't you do it too? That's really the problem. That's really the problem. Like, why can't Dubov study 12 hours a day as well? I mean, that's the thing. You know, if Fabiano can do it, why can't Dubov do it as well? There's nothing saying that Dubov can't study 12 hours a day. So, like, just saying.
What does it mean? It's like someone who is completely raw, and someone who's completely raw is someone who hasn't been exposed to much chess. So we're talking about young players. So again, we're talking about what metric can we use to determine if a young player will become very good. But when we're talking about 30-year-old plus players, like me, Magnus, Hikaru, and so on, I don't really know what talent means. Like, you have ratings and you have accomplishments, which determine skill, and we don't really know what went into the skill. Like, how did you get that skill?
Yeah.
And I think this is something that Gary also mentioned when he was on our podcast. He mentioned the fact that the work that you're putting in, the routine that you're setting up for yourself, and the work that you're willing to do should be a part of the talent, should be a part of the talent discussion.
Yeah, of course. I agree. Being able to work hard is, first of all, essential. And it is also an ability in itself. You could call it a talent if you want. But it's also one that pretty much everyone at the top possesses. There's not a single player, I'll just get like the top 30 list, or the 2700 list. And especially if we look at the top 10. But if we look at anyone over 2700, there's not a single player who has not devoted enormous amounts of work Now, there are players who have worked more or less than others, and it's hard to measure that because we don't know, right? We don't have insight into everyone's work.
Also, though, also as Fabiano is saying here, the other thing that's very difficult about this is when he talks about like top 30, what even does work mean? For someone studying 12 hours a day can be the way they get very good. For another player playing 12 hours of blitz online can help them improve. So like even this is very, very subjective because like no two people are the exact same in terms of how they learn or how they get very good. I mean, that's really actually the problem. It's all so subjective that there's nothing that you can really say about this. And like I would just to use myself an example, if I weren't streaming and I were actually a pro chess player, for me, past a certain number of hours, if I'm studying more than say 5 hours a day, the information is just going to go right out of one ear. It's going to go in one ear, out the other ear. Like my mind, I will not be able to remember stuff if I study more than 5 hours a day. But for example, there might be other players who can study 10 hours a day and they will actually remember everything that they're looking at. So it's again very, very subjective. No two people are the same. There's no one box that you can fit everybody in. And that's why the whole thing is just like I mean I get what Dubov is saying, but I find it kind of it rubs me the wrong way. It really does. For some, watching Hikaru streams is part of the work to get good. Obviously everybody's got a different routine. It's no different than like education. That's one of the hardest things in education these days is that you try to standardize like test taking, for example, or things along these lines. And for one kid, it works phenomenally well, following a straightforward routine for taking tests. For another kid, they don't learn the same way and they struggle very, very heavily with test taking. So it's like that's why the whole thing is just kind of silly to me. But let's keep going.
And their work ethic. If we're talking about like Magnus, he maybe has worked the most just because he's played so many world championship matches, and to prepare for a very clear goal like that, you essentially get a bunch of people together and then you work all day for weeks at a time. And you know that because we've done this, right? For big goals like the candidates or the world championship match that I played. But he's played 5 world championship matches, so he's done that absolutely dedicated work more than other people at the top. Except for maybe Vichy, who has, like from my understanding, has one of the best work ethics in, and I'm not speaking from experience with him, but I've heard from people who worked with him, like Rustam Kazımcanov, that basically his work ethic is unparalleled. But especially when you have a clear goal like a world championship match, it's very easy to motivate yourself for that type of work. Well, if your goal is, let's say, to win some open tournament, it's a lot less motivating.
And I think this is part of why you have achieved such longevity at the top, because outside of the candidates, outside of the World Championship match that you've trained for, you also putting enormous amounts of work every single day. And I think this is something that he's touching upon as well. The mentality, the winner's mentality. Actually, what do you think he means when he says you possess a certain winner's mentality that allows you to stay at the top compared to everybody else in the top 20 that might, you know.
I don't even know what this means myself, by the way. Winner's mentality. I don't even know what Dubov is saying here.
Well, so again, now it's another sort of vague term, which will mean something to Dubov that may mean something different to me, right? When I hear of like winner's mentality, and I think also people will disagree about who has like more winner's mentality or who has less, because this is again quite a subjective sort of thing.
See, like this I would say like this is very subjective too, because I'll give you an example. Everyone would say that Magnus has the best winner's mentality, but that's just because Magnus happens to win the most. If Magnus weren't winning the most, I don't think we would say he has the best winner's mentality. He just happens to win the most, so we sort of associate Magnus with that. So like again, this is one of those things that like you know it's just it doesn't really work. Because if Magnus were losing a bunch of important games, we would not be saying he's got the best winner's mentality. But everybody in the chess world would say Magnus has the best winner's mentality. But that's just because he happens to win the most. Magnus hates losing the most, maybe, but I mean, still, like I don't even know where this is going. I'm starting to lose my train of thought too.
Means that like when you approach a game or when you approach a tournament, you basically think I'm here to win it, and you kind of think you're the main character in a sense, right? Not that like you are a second party to someone else, but that you're the one who's there to win, and then you're just facing an obstacle. Which again, I think I do possess that to a great extent. That would be my interpretation of it. But again, if you look at the top, I think, like from players I've played against, obviously Magnus has that in about the greatest quantity that you can imagine.
Exactly.
And I would also say that Hikaru, although at times I felt like he
doesn't care,
has lost his motivation and will to win. But generally speaking, yeah, he does view himself as like the guy to go and win, right?
Yes.
And from the young players like Bukesh, RG,
this is actually really funny to hear Fabiano say. This is actually really funny to hear Fabiano say because but he sort of like he says both. He says sometimes I want to win and then sometimes I don't care, which is it's interesting to hear Fabiano say that. He's basically saying that I have a mix. He's saying that like I don't care but I do care, basically. So it's interesting.
And Noterbeck, although I don't know them too well, it's very evident that Bukesh does possess this and that Noterbeck does possess this.
I would agree with Noterbeck for sure.
With Alireza, it's a bit less clear again.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know, it's like I'm not in someone's head, right? So you can maybe read too much into someone's.
No, Fabiano, I agree with pretty much everything Fabiano said. Though I would say like with Noterbeck and Gukesh, you definitely feel that. With Alireza, it's very confusing because sometimes you feel like he's completely there and he's in it to win it, and then sometimes you feel like he's just showing up. Like it's very Alireza, out of all the top players, he's the one that is really the hardest to sort of read or understand, which I think Fabiano is about to say.
Into someone without knowing really how they are or who they are, if you don't know them quite well. But okay, with Alireza, it's clear that still he's like trying to win every tournament he's playing. So again, who at the top does not have this
will to win,
this sort of winner's mentality, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, winner's mentality.
Well, I would say
killer's instinct.
I mean, I think yeah, you could say winner's mentality, killer instinct, as Christian just says. You could say like a will to win. Like, I mean, all you can use 20 different ways to say the same thing, basically.
I guess some people would call it, there's different names for it, I would assume. Anyway, I think this probably sums up
Wesley,
our
actually
answer.
I would agree though. You guys are right that when you get beyond the top 10, it's not clear. But like you talk about Dominguez or you talk about Wesley, I mean, I would agree that those are guys who do not possess it anymore. Dominguez is just a little bit too old. I mean, he's too old. He's like 42 years old. But Wesley So is definitely someone where you feel like he's showing up. He wants to win his 1 or 2 games, collect his paycheck, and go home. He is definitely someone who I would say I don't think possesses anywhere near as much of the winner's mentality. He's very happy to win his 1-2 games, make a bunch of draws, and go home with his big check. So yeah, now someone's probably gonna make a video out of drama that oh my god, like I said that Wesley So doesn't have a winner's mentality. He's not talented. He's a terrible chess player and everything else. But let's keep going.
To Dubov, our reaction.
I just want to say, like, I understand his opinion. I'll just like finish up quickly. Like, I understand more or less what he's going for, but I feel like this is a issue of kind of vague language, which maybe means something to him that it means something different to someone else, and it doesn't really. It's not a very accurate metric. So when he says like someone is the most or the least talented in chess among the top 50 or top 30 or whatever, then I don't exactly know what that means. And I think that if he tried to start ranking people by their talent, he would realize that it starts to become a bit meaningless. Like maybe he would put Magnus at number 1 and nobody would argue, and maybe he would put Alireza at number 2. But then like besides some things that maybe people would agree on.
Yeah, because see, here's the problem. I mean, basically the only way that he can do this, I mean, Fabiano's not saying this specifically, it doesn't seem like, but is that Dubov's basically saying blitz is what matters the most because you have to play quickly with limited time, no opening prep, none of this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And that's basically what Dubov is ranking it off of. But again, that's very, very subjective, trying to say that blitz with no prep is better. Because again, natural talent is not a thing.
There would be like very little agreement at some point.
It's gonna I'm gonna end up repeating myself too if I say this 20 times.
Or Wesley So, Jan Nepomniachtchi or Noterbeck Abdustar. It's you can't like how do you say this? How do you determine this?
Unless you turn it off of blitz.
It's something which doesn't have a clear meaning for me.
I think it's quite subjective and it's based on everybody's interpretation. Now, to illustrate his point, kind of give him the benefit of the doubt, we should going to an analysis of one of your games that you played today against Vincent Keimer, Division 3 semifinals.
Oh,
you're
that's
with the white
it, right?
pieces.
I think that's it. Is it just going to turn to a recap? Oh, it's just going to turn to a recap. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think again, like in terms of what Dubov is saying, I mean, he should come out and just say like, I'm talking about blitz, and I consider blitz to be the purest form of natural talent. That's what I would say. Is I think that ultimately, if Dubov just says that, then it can be much clearer. There's more to the interview besides a game recap. No, it's just a game recap, right? No, it's just a game recap is what it looks like. I mean, I agree with Fabiano from the standpoint that, I mean, so for example, if Dubov frames it as like, I consider blitz to be like the pure hallmark of who's the best at chess, then by that metric, that's Dubov's opinion. And I mostly would agree with Dubov that if you consider blitz to be the most important thing, that yes, Fabiano is not as talented as say Magnus or Ali Reza or myself. But blitz is just one form of the game. I mean, it's one form of the game. Like, you can't suddenly say classical chess doesn't matter. Like, you can't really make that argument. But I think if Dubov were to like say that, like, then at least it's a lot clearer. It's not vague the way that it's vague. And I think that's probably what Dubov means, is my guess. No, but I'm watching the Fabiano react. I'm not talking about this is not the Dubov react. I think Dubov is a much better blitz player than Fabiano. I think Dubov is extremely dangerous, extremely creative. Dubov, however, is also nowhere near as consistent, which is another big part of chess. Fabiano might not shine as brightly as Dubov. He might not have as many flashy games in blitz, whereas Dubov will have some incredible masterpieces, but Fabiano is going to be much more consistent overall. So that's what I would say.